Oh man, yeah, I know you're going to be playing this in the office all day.
Yeah.
You're going to have your little Switch on. GoldenEye, you're going to be saying, Josh, you want to play 2-player? I don't want to play 2-player. I don't want to play 2-player with you at all.
That wasn't what the video was about whatsoever. There's something else that we want to talk about, or at least I dragged Josh in here to talk about, which is the state of Xbox and the fact that Hi-Fi Rush just dropped, and everything that means about the way that Xbox might be going forward with their various releases. I should also say that I'm Scott Tilford, and that's Josh Brown.
Hello, Scott Tilford.
Hello. Now, there are various things I wrote down about just the way that I think both of us and a lot of people reacted to the fact that Xbox just went, hey, we're doing a very standard developer direct, sort of informing you about various properties like Minecraft and Elder Scrolls and Redfall and whatever. And then they just went, hey, by the way, here's a finished, pretty much AAA game that we barely even talked about, just shadow dropped, available right now, runs at 4K 60 on a Series X, go Philly Boots, go have fun, and what all those things mean, or what I think they mean, for the way Xbox might be starting to do business. Now, you have a really good counterpoint to this, which I think we should also touch on,
yes,
which is just the state of Microsoft and Xbox right now, and the fact that they just lost like 11,000 employees across the last week, so they kind of needed to make good anyway.
That's it, man, and I don't want to get too, maybe conspiratorial or be too cynical about this drop, because I am loving the game itself. I think it's like really incredible. Love the art style, love the flow of it. Really, really solid stuff. Mm-hmm. That said, to me personally, in my cynical, industry-riddled brain, I see this drop in this direct coming, 1 week after Microsoft as a whole, like you said, laid off 11,000 employees, and Xbox Studios in particular were hit hard, including some Bethesda staff and a lot of staff at 343 Studios. To me, it might just be a coincidence, but it reminds me of when Bethesda started announcing stuff like Diablo 4 and was talking about Overwatch 2. When we got Elder Scrolls 6 from Bethesda when Fallout 76 was happening, games that would drop to take the conversation elsewhere and to focus it on something more positive. Mm-hmm. That is my cynical brain, trying to analyze why this was dropped out of nowhere. But in terms of the game itself, like I said, it is incredible, and you can kind of see why they have just let it speak for itself, because I think if you saw the trailers for it, or if they'd had a longer rollout, you would look at Hi-Fi Rush and go, maybe it's a bit cringe, maybe it's not what I want. But being able to literally just pick up the full game right now, the proof is in the pudding. In the pudding is right there on Game Pass for you to play.
The pudding is delicious. I feel like we should also address, not at all what the video is about, that the fact that the style of dialogue in this game is identical to Forspoken. We're just not going to talk about that as a populist, but it literally is just very, very similar.
It is.
It's very, very similar. But in terms of the way that Xbox are going forward, this is the thing that I think is very interesting, is this idea of they've acquired so many different studios, they have so many irons in the fire. What if this is the way that they want to go forward, that they kind of want to, that their secret weapon is a lack of expectation, and it pays off just going, hey, here's this new game. They absolutely have dominated social media across the last couple of days. Hi-Fi Rush has like a 99% positive rating over on Steam right now. You can buy it for about £30 in the UK, or you just get it as part of Game Pass. And I think it's interesting moving around the idea of marketing and hype and expectation, and not even worrying about something falling down because they mistimed a trailer or something like what Forspoken has done, and just going, just relying on your Game Pass numbers. Like their Game Pass subscriber numbers are almost 20 million, if not over 20 million now. Yeah. So it is a safe bet for them to not worry about that audience, and just whether or not this is the way things could be for them, and in terms of it being an identity for them as well.
I hope so, because when you think about Game Pass, a lot of people, rightly so, bought into it on the promise of these big AAA releases from the first party studios, excited to get Gears and Halo and Forza on their day one. Mm-hmm. But as we've sort of, come to terms with the reality of how Xbox operate and how Game Pass operates, those releases are few and far between right now. So for me, Game Pass and the beauty of Game Pass is the ability to have a release like this, the ability to have a Pentiment from Obsidian, or was it Grow Home from Obsidian? Or Grounded, sorry.
Grounded, yes.
Grounded. Yes, Grow Home is Ubisoft. Grounded from Obsidian as well. These really interesting, not quite AAA releases that are perhaps more exciting and more immediate than those AAA releases. I'd much rather Hi-Fi Rush in one trailer got me more excited than Forspoken did after a 2-year rollout. You know what I mean?
And I'll throw in and I'll take the heat. I think it is more immediately exciting than Starfield. If you go gameplay to gameplay, and I want to be proven wrong, as I wound the brown man. But still, I kind of have that whole idea. One of my biggest problems with the industry is that we don't have enough games like Hi-Fi Rush or Pentiment, or even things like Evil West, games that are sort of, they get classified as throwbacks, but they just are, video games. They're not trying to be slot machines. They're not trying to get, recurrent spending models. They're not trying to sell you DLC and 6 premium currencies. They're just video video games. They just exist to give you a bit of fun and a bit of escapism. And it's not that things need to be throwaway, but the parameters are set. And they're not trying to dominate the entire media landscape. It's just a nice, humble, play-tested, bug-free video game.
And you know what? Like, some of my favorite games over the past few years have been just kind of not shadow dropped, but you know, you would maybe refer to it as being dumped on Game Pass. You know, stuff like
Game dump.
Immortality from last year, or a game like Pentiment, which came out to 10 out of 10 reviews. And there is some great stuff on there. You know, some people might pejoratively refer to it as just Game Pass fodder. But when that fodder is this good, like, that keeps the service alive for me. It keeps it varied. The fact that it can be a viable home for stuff that might not get as much of a push, or maybe not even greenlit at all in the regular, you know, game sales space. To me, that's the beauty of Game Pass. I just wonder how viable it is. I wonder how well these things are being received on a kind of download level. How many subscribers are they bringing in? Because, I mean, if you look at the Netflix model, for instance, when that was like getting going, when that was like trying to convince people to come and subscribe, it was greenlighting everything. It was giving Martin Scorsese $200 million to make his passion project. It felt like a really good place for creatives. Then obviously they hit the ceiling, that dried up, and now Netflix looks like one of the worst places for creators because you're not going to get a season 3. A lot of these movies are being scaled back in favor of the big production blockbusters, and I hope that Xbox Game Pass doesn't get to that point where we're now in a kind of really lovely golden era, but when they hit a ceiling on subscribers, they go, actually, scrap all that stuff, go back to making 10 Starfields a year.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because right now they are experimenting to see what works. They're in that early sort of Netflix stage, and they're trying to see what game mechanics people gravitate the most towards. That will give them a data set as to what the perfect video game is, and that's what most of these bigger studios are trying to hit. That's what Forspoken kind of feels like. It's almost algorithm the video game. You know, for better or worse, there are obviously going to be parts in there that you like, but I think Ubisoft are some of the worst for it, and we're seeing the effects of that. Obviously, Ubisoft are, you know, not hitting their targets, not going down very well. There's a whole strike going on right now with one of their studios, and they're not coming out very well. And you can almost map that out. It's like, is that where PlayStation gets to, where like they've sort of happened upon this formula that works, where they have a bow character, they have light loot components, they have semi-open worlds, and is there an endpoint with that? And it's like where Xbox are at, it's this potential open utopia for game ideas, but they will have that data, and it's like that idea of implementing that data is only going to be as good as the person at the top saying, no, prioritize the freedom, prioritize the creativity, and I guess we'll just see how that goes. But right now, we got Hi-Fi Rush.
Right now we got Hi-Fi Rush, and I do hope we start seeing, you know, these acclaimed AAA developers continue to experiment with stuff like this, because I know you in particular, Scott Tilford, have been talking for years about how you miss the era of the likes of Rockstar and Naughty Dog, pumping out a bunch of different games, not just relying on one or two franchises and trying something new, whether that's Bully, whether that's Rockstar's table tennis, whether it's the Warriors, whether it's inventing a new IP in The Last of Us. And in the utopian dream for this approach is that you get these studios releasing Starfields, releasing The Outer Worlds 2, but also give them the resources and the freedom and the ability to go in and create passion projects like this, smaller scale games that can fill out the release window and not leave us waiting 5 years between those big AAA releases. And most importantly, like we were saying, give subscribers a reason to keep subscribing to Game Pass, because you know, if I only had the PlayStation console, I would have looked at, you know, stuff that Microsoft had gotten in the indie space or in the smaller scale space, like this, like Sable, like Pentiment, like Immortality, and just been thinking, like, have I chosen wrong? Because yes, I'm getting great AAA exclusives, and these will come to PlayStation eventually, but like we've always said, like, Game Pass is one of the best, you know, deals in gaming.
It is,
and this stuff like this to me just kind of reconfirms that.
Yeah, I think it's I think the whole conversation of direct comparisons is a thing as well, and the idea of, you know, is this what a mass populace responds to? Do they respond to the big, you know, overblown AAA exclusive stuff like a God of War, like a Horizon, like a Ghost of Tsushima, or can a more steady rollout of games, can that compete? Will enough people come and sign on for the monthly passes, or will enough people buy it outright? It is interesting when you go on something like Hi-Fi Rush, it does say spend £30, own it, or just keep it on Game Pass, implying that they might rotate it out or something like that. But I also think that the creative side of it is what is the most exciting about it. Because, like you said, Rockstar and Naughty Dog are two of the most, you know, go-to examples of studios that used to prioritize creative freedom and used to prioritize a variety of titles that they would put out. If you compare the amount of games that Rockstar put out in the 2000s versus what they put out in the 2010s, it's like a quarter or something in the 2010s of what they used to put out. And for me, I don't know how much this is a mainstream thing or how much the average person agrees, but I would like to see what what 10 random people from Bethesda would put out in a year or 2 years, something smaller. And something like Abzu, we got from the art director of Journey, and it's like, Journey's a way bigger game, but I followed that dude and watched that and played that game. I think that's the lifeblood of the industry. I don't think it's putting all your eggs into a Forspoken-sized bet and then watching it not pay off. And then going like, oh, well, we can't do new IPs again.
That's it, right? And it's funny that this comes out more or less a week or two after Ubisoft's Yves Guillemot was talking about the shift to mega brands, how we can only make mega brands. That's the future of the industry. That's what we need. That's the only way game development in the modern age is sustainable.
Not Mario, though.
Not Mario. No, that's not a mega brand, apparently, according to Ubisoft. No, Mario, who's that?
Who's that?
But like this obviously comes out, and it's like, well, is that? Why is that the model? Who has told us that's the model? You know, like how many times across the years, Scott Tilford, have like publishers in particular told us that something was dead just because they wanted it to be dead? EA is saying single player is dead. The whole industry saying nobody likes survival horror games, they're not viable. Cut to 2022 and we've got Resident Evil 4 coming out. We've got Silent Hill 2's remake. We've got Dead Space out right now. We had Callisto Protocol last year, even if we don't talk about Callisto Protocol anymore.
It might get there.
You know what I mean?
This story deals with
this to me is proof that in a lot of ways these publishers are talking out their ass. You know, they might say the shift to mega brands is the only way forward, but when a game like Hi-Fi Rush comes out and it gets so much buzz without any marketing as a shadow drop, it makes you wonder whether that's true or not.
I think ultimately, you get why the cold hard business approach is to make the most money possible, do the biggest, safest bet possible, and get the biggest cash return possible. However, I've always maintained that the average gamer, the average player, the average person that puts a lot of their time into this is just way more aware of that stuff and way more aware of how to identify quality, and they eventually push back on the algorithmic approach. Hence, I mean, I guess we haven't seen the sales for Forspoken. Maybe that thing is going to sell incredibly well. It's not on, right now, it's not on the top 10 best-selling stuff over on Amazon, and so, excuse me, we'll see how that stuff shakes out, but I just feel like a lot of people are aware of this, and they gravitate to something like Hi-Fi Rush, and they want to. It's just like, it feels like they want to reward that, and they actually want to put some time in. I do want to talk about, lastly, the general assumption of the production of this, because things like Pentiment and Grounded were in production before Xbox bought Obsidian, or started hoovering up various projects. They didn't cancel them, thankfully. In fact, they bolstered them. Pentiment was, gotten over the finish line by Microsoft/Xbox, and they helped with the localization, they helped with the presentation and the art style. So there's that. But something like Hi-Fi Rush feels play-tested, feels bug-tested, feels pristine, and it doesn't feel like you're waiting for a patch immediately, which is the case for almost everything else in that echelon. Like even if it's Pokemon over on the Nintendo side, we play it a little bit and we go, well, I can't wait till next week or a month later, and hopefully they get there. And it's just one of those things that I think a lot of people just end up accepting and just like, oh, this is just the state of gaming. And there was always something really sad about that. And it's like, no, we're paying money or we're putting our time in. You're putting these things out and saying it's day one. It should be ready. And this is something that is actually ready. So I have to imagine that the production cycle is relaxed because they know the Game Pass money's coming in, hence how they can just delay Starfield again.
Yeah.
And it's worth addressing that like they can take the time to release polished products again. And maybe this is one of the only viable ways to do it at this scale.
Scott Telford, my ultimate sort of conclusion on this is that I hope the cynical part of my brain is wrong, and I hope, kind of like what I hoped when Bethesda announced Fallout 4 on like a 6-month window.
Yes.
Back then I thought that's the future of the entire industry. We're going to get away from these 3-year periods where we just see, a title, and then we see a little bit of a CG trailer, and then we see some gameplay, and then the game is delayed another year. And I thought that was the future. I thought that's what that the industry standard is going to be. And then Bethesda went on to announce The Elder Scrolls 6, and we haven't seen that in like 4 years, and I was wrong. I hope I'm not wrong about this. I hope this is the model that is established going forward. Where yes, we still get the AAA games, we still get the big releases on Game Pass, but we also get this ability for those smaller teams to be bolstered by Microsoft's resources and deliver inventive games like this.
Yeah, I massively back that. Another thing as well, which we'll talk about this stuff going forward. Go check out the WhatCulture Gaming Podcast. We'll be checking back in on Monday after we play a little bit more of it as well. But the game itself is almost a throwback to a style of video game, a very manageable type of video game in terms of the level design. It is a sort of 3D platformer with a combat mechanics like a Devil May Cry, that is quote unquote easier to develop than a big open world collectathon that's meant to last you 300 hours. There's a safety in that is welcome. There's something there that ties into that whole, it's just a video game. It's not trying to dominate your life every single hour of every single day. So there's a lot of things in the favor of the way that this has dropped, and whether this is indicative of the future, we'll have to wait and see. For now, and this has been Josh Brown.
Oh man, I know you're going to be playing this in the office all day.
Yeah.
You're going to have your little Switch on, GoldenEye, you're going to be saying, Josh, do you want to play 2-player? I don't want to play 2-player. I don't want to play 2-player with you at all.
It's GoldenEye Day. I've been Scott Silver. That's been Josh Brown. We'll catch you next time.
See you later.
See ya.
Bye.